Good evening, everybody. Zhao here. I am desperately trying to get some more map work done. So I thought I'd pop on and do a little stuff and chat with y'all. See what's going on. So for anyone who missed it, we had another episode of the Nerd Council of Doom last night. So it's pretty good. You can go check that out at the Nerd Council of Doom on YouTube. We're working on getting it on some other platforms, but there's some issues. You got to pay for X, which is kind of a pain. And working on getting Rumble to work, but it has not. How's it going, Edwin? It's not a great marker. The one nice thing about Joann's going out of business is that I was able to grab a new pack of microns for nice and cheap. Thought this was going to be like a felt marker. Looks like they replaced it from the last time I bought it. I have up to, there we go. My old set has up to a number 8. It does not have a 10 or a 12, so it's nice to get thicker ones. But then this guy, there used to be like a little brush pen that was in them. And I don't know what happened. So we'll try a 12, see how that works. The only problem with doing an impromptu stream like this is I don't know what the heck happened to my glasses. Getting old, so I need some readers. So I need to get this map done because the next drop of chapters from Empire of the Undying Sun should be a little behind where I'd like to be in releasing them. So I'd like to get it done sooner rather than done and out sooner rather than later. And this map goes for the next chapter. It's being released. I have to do some other stuff with it, such as the next module, which is called the Willow Sisters. That is done insofar as editing and formatting and whatnot. And what it is missing is simply I just got to get the map done. And that has hex maps. You are looking for hags in the dark heart of the woods. And there is a swamp there, so... Oops. Helps if I move this map as I'm doing it so you can see what's going on. But I'm hoping to finish up this map by tonight. see if that happens. But it would be nice to be done by tonight so that tomorrow I can work on the other maps. So at the moment, I'm just going over these outer walls again. I decided they weren't really thick enough. And I really wish I had my glasses. Did I drop them on the floor here? No. Well, that's a shame. Well, I draw impromptus every now and again. I actually meant to be doing a lot more, starting in the spring, but I kind of got tied up with other parts of getting my book out. So, like more writing, editing, that kind of stuff. So now I am trying to catch up a bit. So John, you've been on the big show. You got to go on Talking Comics. How was that? There we go. All right. Back to drawing. That's cool. I used to get Wes and Tyler C. World. I used to get them confused. I was actually in Salt Lake City a few years ago, and I met someone who was, at least at that time, making indie comics, who shall remain nameless on stream. Let me see. Here we go. Hey, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just retweeting that I'm here, so we'll see if we can get some people show up.
Nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Yeah. So, what was your big takeaway from Wes's show?
It's a lot of fun, you know. A lot of guys. I don't do well on a panel show, you know.
Yeah.
So I always want to talk, but you got to let other people talk. So it's just like a balance for me. Okay, I'm a guest here, be on my best behavior, but I get a
I
little
have
nervous. You know, in a crowd, I tend to shut down. One-on-one, I do best.
yeah. I have the opposite problem with panel shows where, like, I always feel like I'm monopolizing people's time. So like I don't want to,
Yeah,
I don't want to jump in.
like yeah, you know, I, not to sound mercenary, but I'm trying to promote a book, so I wanna get my face out there and talk, and charm people, but at the same time, I don't want to be a gracious bully. I mean, an ungracious bully and monopolize everybody's time. So
Yeah.
but he invited me back. I was on this
Oh,
was
nice.
the time on. Yellow Flash was on my channel. He said I could go on his channel.
Hmm.
I just mailed him a copy of my comic, and then
Nice.
Dylan Draws will be on Friday night. I'm
Cool.
trying to get some exposure. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you. I mean, you're killing it right now.
Yeah, I'm on the charm offensive. I got to be on everybody's asking me. I'm going on.
And I got to say, I'm a little envious. You had Emily Miller on, and it's funny because I've been so scatterbrained. I saw that she was having a Kickstarter coming up, and I was like, oh, I should invite her on. And then I totally forgot about it and dropped the ball. And then now it's like too late.
Why is it over? Is the Kickstarter over?
I think she only had about a week left when she was on your show.
Yeah, I just got a message because a month ago I just asked Mark. I was like, yeah, you want to come back on? And he was like, yeah, sure.
Nice.
Like, oh, cool, but you also don't want to come on. You want to come on? You said you were going to come on. You know what I mean? You don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
Then I see he sends me an email. I'm like, okay, we're setting it up. He's like, hey, can my daughter come on? I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to say yes,
Yeah.
And which made me feel good because it was her first, and as far as I know, only live stream,
Oh.
And
well,
then,
dang.
and I don't know anything about her, and I'm notorious. I don't do any research. I just like to do everything on the fly, so I didn't look at her Kickstarter or anything like that. And then like 10 minutes before she goes live, my wife goes, how old is she? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I started to panic. I'm like, I really don't want to talk to a 12-year-old girl. What do I say? Because then I looked up the campaign and it was like childlike drawings. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be a little girl. This is gonna be terrible. Like, do you like candy? Like, what do you say? Without sounding like a creep. But I was so happy.
What's your favorite subject in school?
Yeah. Do you believe in Santa? Because he's not real. What do you say? So I was so happy that she was a woman. I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
And what a sweetheart she was. My wife fell in love with her. My wife backed the book. She was like, she was so nice and so gracious. She sent me a nice email afterwards. And then Mark retweeted it and said that. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing. I was trying to figure out how to get in touch with her because I was like, oh, okay, she'll be on Twitter. If she's
not on Twitter,
there's
there's
so many Millers too. I mean, yeah.
And ask her, I don't think I have the right to give out her email address. You know what I mean?
No. You definitely should not do that. Yeah, I appreciate it, but definitely do not just. Yeah, right. No, that would be bad.
No, But it was. You were in the chat. Yeah, you were watching. But it was a lot of fun. Wasn't she a sweetheart, man? Holy mackerel!
Yeah.
Like I said, if I was only 40 years younger, single, and remotely attractive,
I'm sure Mark will be really happy if he hears you say that too.
That's the joke I always say. The joke is remotely attractive.
Yeah. So just for anyone watching, this was the original map I made that I was working on. This particular part of the campaign I did just as a one shot, and I just like drew this up probably, in like an hour or two or something. So I am just
that's for
working up this. Yeah, it's for my campaign guide. This is the better version.
Because I see like bathtubs and stuff. I thought it was like you're rebuilding your house.
Well, I am doing that too, but no. Yeah, so this is it's basically a modified craftsman house.
Okay.
It is supposed to look like a house, but it's basically owned by a wizard, which is why you've got a box that is extremely cold and there's food in there frozen. And, it's got a toilet that has, instead of plumbing, it's got like a sphere of annihilation. So all the waste you put down the toilet goes into another dimension.
Oh.
But since the house is haunted, if you put if you flush things down 3 times, it spits it back into the room.
All I can think of is just gotta hold on to the goods. Hold on for the berries when you're using that toilet, because
you know it.
Especially when you get into your 60s and 70s. I was thinking like the plumbing could be like a water weird or something like that, living through the plumbing, have access to the house.
Yeah, well, there's an elemental that sends the water in, basically, and you can get stuck in the bathroom where the tub starts to fill up the room, and you have the potential for drowning.
My friend Jimmy has a superhero character in my role-playing game, but he's a wizard, so he's like the Doctor Strange, and I'm very, very strict about like interdimensions, time travel, spells, like all the kind of stuff that could break the game. Yeah, I'm very strict, but Jimmy is one of the few people that I allow, because he gets the spirit of everything that's offered, and he enjoys when I make things difficult. So being a wizard in the superhero game is extremely difficult. But one of the things that he was just mentioning is he's building his character's house, and he wants to have a brazier in the fireplace. Is that how you say it? A brazier, the fire. The whole elemental.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
that makes sense.
Fireplace will be a fire elemental. So I was just like, cool, but it's going to cost a lot, because it's going to want expensive woods to eat, and nice coals, and some incense once in a while. It's not just can't go out and chop a tree down and satisfy a wood elemental. I mean, a fire elemental.
Yeah, he wants pure mahogany. He doesn't want any of that white pine crap.
Yeah. Good wood for a fire elemental.
Is its name Calcifer?
The fire elemental? No, but that could be. We just thought of it. He sends me messages of his plans, and it's every once in a while he'll come over and we just play like a session, and there's no fighting. It's just him like prepping his spell book and building like his magic items, and telling me his plans and rewriting his spell book. And he in the Villains Vigilantes game, you played years ago, right? You said.
I never played Villains and Vigilantes. I played the Marvel superhero role-playing game.
Because there's an inventing process, and that's like we'll do all of his inventing processes like outside of a game to update his spells and things like that. He loves that stuff more than just going, I'm gonna go punch the Red Skull, So, I don't want to punish the other players for having them sitting around watching Jimmy rewrite his spell book. So me and him will get pizza and chit chat and do all that for that. We're probably going to do that next week. Jimmy, if you're watching. Do you have any of that? Do you have any like between sessions?
It depends. Like, so we use Discord. Do you know Discord?
Yeah, I'm on a few Discord servers, and
okay.
All night long I just hear ding, ding, ding. So I silenced them all, and now I probably have like 92 messages.
So I have a Discord service. It's private at the moment, but eventually I'm going to open it up when the game starts shipping a bit more. I have my test groups on there, so I like to keep them separated so they can't talk to each other. And like the first test group I had, a lot of times, we would play the game because when I started testing, it was only like once a month for 3 hours. So they would do all the like role play stuff via Discord. So all their character interactions, or if they wanted to do shopping episodes or something like that. Whereas The second test group has had like so many people in it over the years. And when it started, there were a few guys who really wanted to do a lot of role play and like do all of that kind of stuff. And because, our time was limited, with that group, I do 3 hours every other week. So for them, they wanted to, but then as the groups change, people are like, nah, I don't want this thing to take up my life. I just want to do it while we're doing it. It's like, okay, that's fine.
I was talking, I didn't realize I muted my mic. I remember in college, me and my friends, like, I went to Stony Brook University for a couple semesters before I transferred out to Albuquerque. And at Stony Brook, since it was a Long Island school and most of the school was Long Islanders, they would go home every weekend. And I'm like, I didn't go to college to go home every weekend, So Thursday nights would be the keg parties, that was just like Saturday keg parties, togas, all that stuff. And then Friday nights, it was like either the people who didn't want to go home or people who couldn't go home, or people who lived too far. It was like, you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? And so it was like from Friday night till Sunday night, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not even joking. We would wake up. The only time we weren't playing Dungeons and Dragons is when like we had to eat, and even eating, would be like, Keith would go up to get his food. I was like, I'm going to pick Keith's pocket, because it got to be the point where it was like too much. I'm like, guys, we gotta get grounded. We're not really wizards. It's not like actions were forming. It was getting a little crazy. I kind of miss it, but at the same time, it's like I like the balance. Me and my friends maybe play once or twice a month now, so we have time to think, and then we don't play extended 16-week campaigns either. It's usually 1 or 2 sessions, and the story. It's a superhero story, so I like to think of them as single issues.
Yeah,
I understand. Dungeons & Dragons. Do you do that? Like in your Dungeons & Dragons, is it a long campaign, or is it like this session, 3-hour session, story's over?
Well, that depends on how you mean it. So each kind of like level is its own individual story, but it's within a greater overarching story. So the first few levels 1 through 4 or 5, you really could do in one day if you have like the first at least 3 you could probably do in 4 hours of play. 4 and 5, if you had 6 hours, you could probably get them done. So they would be their own stories. And then after that, intentionally the levels become longer because in the beginning you have those individual sessions, right? But what happens is between like level 1 and level 2, there's like 2.5 or 3 months of in-game time. So a lot of the modules that I'm writing and other people are writing for me, you could plop in a module between levels 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 and 4.
Forgive me for interrupting, but when you're saying levels, you're talking about like the character goes from level 1 or levels of the dungeon?
The character levels.
Okay, all right.
So you can do a lot of different things between the kind of sort of main storyline. The way I kind of look at it is like you're a Lord of the Rings guy, right?
Right.
So, if you look at the whole story, there's like a few months where the hobbits are wandering in the woods. Basically, they're just trying to get to Rivendell,
right?
And so like that's one part, and then they're at Rivendell, and then they set out like on December 25, and then and then you got to do this part. But like there's other things that are going on in the world during that time, right?
Right.
So we start off with the hobbits. They meet elves in the woods. And they tell them about the Black Riders, and I think the main elf's name was Gildor.
Yes.
Which, sorry, Tolkien, not a great not a great name there. Sorry, Bronze Age caveman. Yes, I am sketchy. Well, it's a house, but the house is a dungeon, effectively.
I was
So
thinking the worst elf name was Thingol.
really,
Yeah, I don't know. It's just Thing.
I don't know.
But he's.
I guess it's true.
He's a great character, but a horrible name.
Well, yeah, I guess you're not entirely wrong with that. I don't know. I remember Gildor from the He-Man movie. But at any rate, yeah. So that's happening. You've got Black Riders going to the dwarves and the Lonely Mountain. So there's all sorts of stuff that if you wanted to like play a game during the Lord of the Rings, you don't have to have a party that hangs out with Frodo.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have to be one of the members of the Fellowship of the Ring. There's all sorts of heroic stuff you can do. And that's kind of how I've designed my my campaign guide, is that, you know, if you don't like I've basically got a timeline, and these things happen. Oh yeah, it was Gwildor. My bad. In He-Man, it was Gwildor who made the key. But if you don't like what's going on in the main timeline, you could just plug in all sorts of other events. You can join the timeline whenever you want. But the thing that's different is like, you know, if you were in Lord of the Rings world, right, and Sauron's armies are on the march, your group might have to they might have to go around the army.
Right.
They might have to fight them. You know, it could mess up your plans, or maybe because now they're out in the fields fighting, maybe you could raid the tower where Sauron is because there's no resistance. So that's kind of how this is designed, that the DM should know what's coming up. And then they could say, well, I do like this chapter, I don't like this chapter. So they can do, they can use a module, which will be optional, or they could decide, no, I'm going to make my own thing. So, you know, one thing I wanted is people buy these campaign guides, and generally like, okay, you go through it once and now it's very boring because you know everything that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to run it again. But I wanted to make it so that if you decided to, like, you don't want to play with the same group because they know what's coming, but if you get another group, you could have a totally different game.
I've never run the same dungeon twice, but everything is. I never use modules or anything like that. I'm such a control freak. You know, I gotta do it all. I made up my own world. I made up my own gods. I made up my own pantheon. You know, because did you ever see Community?
No, I heard that there was a infamous D&D episode.
Yeah, you got to see that D&D episode. Like, what happens is Chevy Chase is the jerk character. He's fabulously wealthy. You know, so they're going on a quest and he's just being a jerk. So they send him into another room, like the party splits. So he's like, you can't be in here because you can't hear the plans. So he's in the other room and he fetches like a person who's not playing and he bribes him. He goes, we're doing the I forget the name of the adventures, the Temple of Elemental Evil. Do you know it? He goes, oh yeah, that's a good one. He goes, here's $100. Go get me a copy. So he gets so he's reading the module ahead and anticipating everything, you know. So and then he comes back into play and he's just like, okay, I go down to the hallway to the left, you know. So he's getting the treasure first. You know, it's a really clever episode, especially for Dungeons & Dragons. Yeah.
Bronze Age caveman. Yeah, that sounds. Your deck sounds pretty cool. I would like to do that. I had thought about doing a home repair channel.
You do woodwork, right? You do carpentry, right?
Yeah, amateur carpentry, yeah. But the house I'm in, we bought in 23, and it's a nice house, but it was built in 62, and it looked like it was built in 62.
Yeah.
If you take my meaning. So there's a lot of stuff that really needed to be redone.
I joke, if you go upstairs, that's where Reuben Kincaid lives. We haven't modified upstairs yet. It just looks like Shirley Jones and Mrs. Brady are having coffee upstairs at any given moment.
Yeah, exactly. We had this like royal blue shag carpet. Oh, I gotta say it
I
was
have a burgundy shag carpet. I'm afraid to tear it up.
nice.
I think the floor is going to be bad. Once you tear up that carpet, I'm committed. And I just don't have the energy or the funds to redo the flooring as of yet.
The couple that built this house, the guy used to work at the tool and die part of Ford or GM. I can't remember which one at the factory. And there's a dining room that it used to go outside, but then they put a sunroom on there.
Okay.
And so it has like the big patio doors, sliding doors. And they had blinds, like vertical blinds that covered it. This guy was so anal. The whole room was wallpapered in like roses and stuff. He cut out the wallpaper and put it on those blinds so perfectly that when the blinds were closed, like the pattern matched exactly.
Wow.
It was. I mean, in some ways I hated to tear it down, other than it was, really old and ugly. But
yeah, got to respect the craftsmanship at the very least.
Exactly. But
there's the whole kitchen, like most upstairs is like paneling. You know those memes when like, this is what you think the 80s look like. Well, this is what the 80s look like. That's what my house looks like upstairs. It's got that paneling. But then there's my bedroom and then one wall in the living room. You know that plaster that they just whip so that it's like sharp and pointy?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and taking that apart is, you got to move out of the house because your whole house is filled with plaster dust. So someday, downstairs is nice. I spent all my money and time fixing, because this was a dungeon, so I didn't have to tear anything apart. This was never lived in here, so I fixed it. And I told my wife, we got to fix it, otherwise we're paying $600 a month for a storage unit. So that 1 o'clock, I was like, we're going to be paying the mortgage and the storage unit. So I get down here as soon as the floor was done.
Yeah, I don't blame you. My basement has the wood paneling too. It's something I want to redo eventually, but part of the problem here is when the house was built, people didn't really use a lot of insulation, if at all. This had some, but it was like getting in the weeds for anyone watching a draw stream. But it had insulation that was R5, which means the house was freezing cold.
Oh, okay.
So I've torn out almost all of the exterior walls and put them up. And I know what you mean about the plaster, because that's what they used at the time. And it was just horrible.
Yeah. The only way to get rid of it is to just destroy the whole wall, back to the bare bones. And then everything is like, you gotta, it's a big deal. It's such a big, I just don't want to do that. Like, my wife kind of likes it. And it's funny because like when my sister comes over, my nieces come over, like, I love it. It's so kitschy, I'm like, all right. I tell my wife, I said, I'm so lucky. She's so low maintenance, like.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised my wife hasn't divorced me yet. I started the kitchen remodel at the end of October last year, and it's like, okay, now I have some flooring in the garage. I need to put that in, but I haven't had time because I've been busy with this campaign stuff. I've had a couple other things to do, so I haven't had time to design out the cabinets. Part of the problem was I kind of sort of forgot how to use the program SketchUp. So I had to reteach myself that, and now I get it. So I need to figure out. I just need some time to design all the cabinets because you can't just be like, well, I'll order 10 sheets
Yeah.
of fancy maple plywood and then see what happens. You know.
Yeah, wood is so expensive. We redid my roof, and
Oof.
I ordered all the plywood. You know, this was like during the first couple of weeks of COVID, and he was like, "You lucked out." Like, you know, because he came back to finish everything. He was like, "You lucked out. The price of lumber just tripled."
Yep.
I was like, "Oh, good," because yeah. I lucked out so much with this house. I'm so happy.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I was still living in LA during COVID, and I was working. And one of my patients, he apparently was the warehouse manager for I can't remember what company it was, but it was a big company that sold lumber. And this was like as COVID was tapering down, and he was saying like, "Oh yeah, our warehouses are stocked to the gills. We don't have any more places to put this wood." And I said, "Oh, so prices are going to come down soon, right?" And he's like, "No,
Yeah.
you know, they have too much stuff." And it's like, "Nope, not gonna give any break to us."
So you're a doctor?
Doctor of Oriental Medicine.
Oh, okay. So okay.
So mostly acupuncture and herbal medicine. But the last place I was working for was workers' comp.
Okay.
So a lot of electricians in there.
Yeah. It's funny because in my superhero game, we have they don't have a skill system. So I came up with like a rudimentary skill system. If you have the skill, you roll versus if you're a juggler, you roll versus dexterity, die 20. If you're not a juggler, you roll versus dexterity, die 100. So it's real simple. You know, you can still do it even if you're not a trained juggler. So and I remember one of the players was just so mad because he's like, "Is there a list of skills?" I'm like, "Is there a list of skills in real life? You know, just playing in the real world." So he wanted to be an acupuncturist. So I was just like, "Okay, so we'll average out intelligence and agility, and that'll be your acupuncture skill. Die 20."
That makes sense.
Okay, yeah, because that I wanted to make the skill system as easy and consistent. So it was funny. One of my friends' characters got knocked out, and he was like, "I'm going to use my acupuncture to wake him up." And I was like, "Okay," you know. And he rolled a 2, you know, so he did it. He was like, "Yeah!" He was just so happy, you know. Acupuncture came to the rescue in a superhero role playing game.
Well, that sounds about right.
And one of my there was like an island of monsters, like in like the Japanese Godzilla movies. Monster Island. One of my friends' play characters got stranded there for a month in game time. So he just observed all the monsters while hiding, and he goes, "Could I have learned anything while on monsters?" You know, because some knowledge areas, some skills you just can't learn. You know, you can't just say, "I'm going to learn cosmic, secrets." You know, you have to either find it or, you know what I mean. So just as a joke, I said, "Yes, you learned Monster Island etiquette, how the monsters like establish dominance." And he wrote it down. And a couple of adventures later, a monster shows up. So he jumps out and he goes, "I use my Monster Island etiquette to show him that I am the dominant monster." And he rolled it. He rolled like a 1, which is lower the better. You know, so he came up and did like and it was funny because he was like using his hands and showing, everybody and he scared off the monster. And I'm like,
nice.
Yeah, every role playing stupid skill comes in handy. Now, do you do that? Do you have players that just like want to pick like a skill that just seems worthless, and then like, okay, I'm gonna throw this in the adventure or something like that?
I am that guy. If you give me like the most mundane item, I will find ways to abuse it. Like, so I'm in a Gamble World game on Friday nights, and somewhere we picked up a pleasure orb, like on a space station. And so my guy was like real low on hit points, and if anybody knows Gamma World, it's real tough to get hit points back.
Yeah.
So I said to the DM, okay, hear me out, because we were in an airport, and I kept and we would go to like, oh, here's this departure gate, that departure gate, whatnot, and I was like, are there any massage chairs? Are there any massage chairs? And then I was like, okay, so hear me out. If some of the damage must be because he's sore and achy, and I said, what if he laid in the massage chair and used the pleasure orb for an hour? Could he get some hit points back? And it was so stupid. I broke the DM, and he's like, okay, I'll let you get 1 or 2 hit points back. I was like, yes.
1 or 2 is better than nothing.
So if you give me an item, I will almost assuredly do something with it. And same with abilities. Like I will find, give me the dumbest ability, I will find some way to make it work.
I remember I had an evil wizard in D&D who had a spell that just merged the players, and it was just me messing with the players. So the players got merged, and they pretty much got the worst of their stats. So whatever was the worst of everything, because it was like a cursed spell. So the evil wizard would merge 2 players, and I would just take whatever number and take the worst. And they were like, oh man. So of course they defeated the wizard, took his spell book, and that became their most powerful weapon. A joke spell that I totally regretted, giving it to them. They used it so effectively.
Yeah, I had another character one time. This was in Dungeons and Dragons, and he got some cloak that like had the ability to teleport you to the astral plane, which wasn't in general very useful. But in the last battle, we were in hell, and we were fighting this archdemon down in hell, and he had this complicated system where time runs differently depending on the dimension you're in. So like 1 day in hell is like 1,000 years or something in heaven. And since I had this cloak, we were in this battle, and I used up all my spells, and I was like, okay, I want to use this cloak. And I figured it out, like he could hang out in the astral plane for like 6 days, right, and then come back and for the next round of combat. And so like he was just there, and he got all rested up. He got all his spells back. He was just partying it up for 6 days. Came back. The DM was shocked, but it worked out.
Yeah, I remember there was a staff, and the staff was segmented. It had like 24 segments, and every time you stepped on it, one of the segments would break, but you would be in a sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it looked like inside a genie's bottle, and there was always food, and it was just like a temporary shelter. But the DM made it, the time didn't pass. And that was the mistake. So right in the middle of the fight, we would all grab hands, rest. You could spend as much time as you wanted. It was, so we had like, okay, whoa, who needs to rest? And he couldn't wait for all 24 charges of that to go away.
Yeah, I had to. Oh, yeah, I had one of my players. So we had this like, when you do it a test group, things go horribly wrong because you're trying to figure stuff out. So I had this fight with my players and some giant crabs that came aboard their ship. So this guy they killed the crabs, and he's like, hey, they were giant crabs. Right. And he's like, can I use this shell as a shield? And I had made a new kind of shield that like it gives you more defense, but it greatly restricts your movement. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. So he did that, and it was like the worst. it was like virtually impossible to hit this guy with the amount of armor he had after that. So eventually I let him effectively abuse the shield to the point where I was like, nope, it broke.
Yeah.
He rode it down a flight of stairs like a sled. And I was like, oh, it's a shame it broke as you went through that door.
Yeah. Like any weapon, anything like in Villains Vigilantes, they have structure points. It's
Mm-hmm.
and the way I describe it is any system. So like a robot or a human would have hit points, but like a column or a wall would have a structural points. Okay, and the reason it's different is like you could hit the robot, you didn't necessarily cut through them, but you did enough damage that you ruin their systems. Like you know, a human body is a system. So if you like a concrete wall, I don't remember the numbers, but like a foot of concrete is I don't know 5 structural points. Let's just say I'm making the numbers up because I don't remember. So if you punch concrete and you do 4 damage, you do nothing. It's all or nothing with the structure. So you can't just what's that called, ablative? You can't just poke it with your knife. You know what I mean? And eventually, so you have to do 5 points of damage. If you do less, it comes off your hand. Do 6 damage, you put like a 1 foot hole in it. Now, there's a little system for cracking it, stuff like that. So you know there's a secondary roll every time you do damage. There's a secondary roll to see did you do the minor damage that adds up or whatever. But I try to keep it quick. But that's the so whenever like a shield has a structural rating, like you know, a magic shield could have up to 20 points or something like that. But it's all or nothing. You know, so sometimes like a giant will come. I'm like, do you use your shield? And they know like this is the end of the shield. You know what I mean? There's no saving throw. It's if it does 21 damage and you use that shield and it takes all 21 damage, that shield is gone. It's useless. So the players kind of have a little bit of control. But there's like a rolling system. Like you can roll with the damage. So if you roll at all, it's not, you know, you could save it. If 1 point of you know comes off your rolling, I'm trying to be like not too complicated with the roll. But if you're resolute, meaning it all comes, you don't rant, you just stand there like Captain America and take and it blasts through your shield. That's it. So swords are constantly breaking, armor is constantly breaking, and it's pretty straightforward. So the players, they almost know like this big guy's coming with the, you know, with a big swirling Sauron mace. You know that if shields are going to be breaking, you know, we're going to be safe for about 2 or 3 hits before. And then of course there's attacks that do structural, like fire. You know, fire will it can reduce the structure from 5 down hit structural points to 4. You know, so fire can weaken it. Disintegration, obviously. You know what I mean? But like a punch. Yeah. So yeah, like that crab shell, it would have a you know, it would make it difficult to hit. But what is the structural rating of crab? You know, a crab shell. So it wouldn't have lasted too long. And the other thing I do, I know you and I disagree on this, but I did away with classes. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
It's mostly like if you want to be a wizard, you're a wizard. You know, anybody could call themselves a wizard. You know, I could call myself a cop, but I'm not a cop. You know, but you know what I mean. I'm a quarterback. I haven't played. I haven't done anything, but I could call myself a quarterback. And you know what I mean. But
yeah.
So to be a wizard, you want to spend all your skills and everything in wizard pursuits. Now, if you're a wizard and you pick up a mace and you train in mace and you wear armor, you're not doing it right. But it's not against the rules because a wizard, you got to be dexterous. You got to cast your spells fast, because if you get hit while in the process of casting the spell, you wasted it. You wasted your magical reagent and everything like that. So you want to be smart. Now, if you're wearing armor, it reduces your agility. So, yeah, you're really defense, but you're really slow. So if you're wearing plate mail, you want to do all these maneuvers to cast your spell. There's a real serious chance that not only are you going to get struck, You're going to waste your action, and you're going to lose your reagents. So you're not a very good wizard but you can do it. You can spend all your points and learn bows and arrows and long swords and things like that. But then you don't have enough, because every school of magic is its own inventing process. Like if you want to learn enchantments and illusions and necromancy and stuff like that, you're using skill points for that. But you waste it all on longsword and bow. So you are the world's worst wizard, but you are a wizard kind of thing. And then there's preliminaries. You got to get all these skills before you even cast your first spell. My friend Jimmy's character, the superhero wizard, real time, he played that character for 7 years before he cast his first spell. Learning all the prerequisites to become, and he loved that stuff. So he was hanging out with the superhero characters, and they were like, "You're a wizard, do something." And he's like, I throw a punch. He literally had like a staff and a dagger in a superhero game. He was it was fun. But now, I mean, he can hang with the best of them. Yeah.
Well, Bronze Age Caveman, you are a screenwriter. That's all it takes.
Right.
If you write a comic book, you are a comic book writer. If you write a novel, you are a novelist.
Yep.
Did I ever tell you about the time I wrote a novel when I was in high school?
No.
So we had this class. And it was my senior year, so I had done summer school one year, so I got all of the important classes out of the way. So in senior year, it was all BS, and I decided, I'm going to take this novel writing course. Should be great, right? So what happens is, I'd never written anything like that before, and it had to be 90 pages, and I got to page 45, and I was just out of gas. So by that point, I figured out the teacher wasn't really reading it. So I copied the entire 45 pages, pasted it in, and then at the end of the original 45, I had the people get hit by a time warp ray. And then I just went through the copy of the 45, and occasionally I'd write in, he had felt like he had been here before. Or she had a real sense of deja vu.
That's funny. Cheater.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily I got away with it, because I would hate to not graduate on that.
Did the teacher read it and think it was funny, or you just caught him and the teacher never read it?
No, I think he was reading some of the stuff at the very beginning, when we were doing, you got to do an outline, and you do a couple rough drafts of early chapters. And that was one of the ways I found out I am notoriously slow when it comes to writing.
I'm putting off. I'm writing a comic script for Stippling Born to draw, and I'm just delaying it. Stippling, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm just it's set in the Revolutionary War America.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know why it's just intimidating to me so much. I decided yesterday that I was just going to write it, anachronisms be damned. Just get the story done, and then go over it and change what needs to be changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to put airplanes and machine guns and stuff like that in it. Just write the dialogue as if just forget about the time period, and then fix it in the lettering stage.
So George Washington doesn't have an Uzi?
Historically, I can't prove that he did. Nobody said that he didn't have an Uzi.
That's right.
George Washington's not even in it. It's all fictitious. Well, the James Madison is in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Other than that, everybody else is made up.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a comic strip.
Oh, cool.
Script. Nothing that has to do with this, because I need. One thing I discovered doing this is I need a little palate cleanser sometimes. So it takes place in the 1920s in Brazil.
Oh wow, that's a cool setting.
Yeah, it's kind of I want it to be I guess I'd say my main inspirations are pulps. A little okay, Johnny Quest wasn't a pulp, but it had that pulp feel. But I would say probably Solomon Kane is the biggest influence on it.
Okay.
But like that, and a little bit of like the early Mummy, the 1930 whatever Mummy, and a little bit of the Brendan Fraser one.
That is cool.
But yeah, so they end up going through the jungle, having adventures, and the main character, he survived World War One. He survived the Battle of the Somme, and basically his unit was getting they were just getting torn up, and he said, God, if you get me out of here, I'll do whatever you want. And so now he's basically traveling the world wherever he feels God tells him to go.
He walks the earth like Cain.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking with Oscar Crano, my colorist, and he's also the artist on Eddie is Doomed. And I was telling him originally I wanted to set it in Brazil, but I was like, you know what? I'm working with two guys who live in Mexico. So it was going to be this. There's a slum in Brazil they call it the City of God, and it's supposed to be like the biggest slum in the world. But it turns out there's an even bigger one in Mexico, and it's like a real bad area, gangs, and some people live and die there. They never leave. There's no records of their existence, kind of thing. And I've always been like, so what if there was like a horrible murder cult like that, literally like worship like Molochs and things like that? So
yeah.
So that they would need a superhero. So I was researching like a Portuguese daredevil that lived in the slum, and it was just. But Oscar convinced me to change it to Mexico, and I forget the name of it, but Renzo doesn't. He knows about it. Mexico City is huge, so he knows about this. He's like, yeah, that's bad. You don't want to go there. I was like, yeah, So it started out in Brazil and it turned to Mexico just because. What you use what you got. I got guys who can correct my poor grammar and language and make it sound less,
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that would be a fun story. I'm
definitely.
Not telling the names of the characters and stuff until it's written.
I think Brazil is kind of a relatively unused location for those of us outside of Brazil.
Yes.
Like, Brazilians, of course, know a lot about it. But like, if I said Brazil, you'd be like women in thong bikinis, giant Jesus, and drinking on a beach.
Yeah, it's exotic to us. Yeah.
Yeah. And they kind of I don't know, Brazil's had like a weird history, just in the sense that like technically they kind of sort of were, I think, on the Allied side in World War One, but they didn't really do anything. They were totally out of World War Two, and you would have thought that they would have been like the U.S. The U.S. had a fantastic economy because we weren't bombed to hell after World War II. You would think Brazil could have made some hay, but they didn't. And then there were like communists running the country, and they had and there were, police or military control for a while, and this and that, and it kind of sort of shut itself off.
Yeah.
Except for like Bronze Age cavemen, samba. Yeah, like samba and bossa nova. That's like. Do most Westerners know anything else about Brazil?
It was like the last country in the world to get rid of slavery.
I think it was technically the last Western country.
Yeah.
Because I think Saudi Arabia gave it up in like 1960.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think Brazil was like 1888 or something.
Because I know after the Civil War, there was a bunch of like Southerners who took their slaves to Brazil, to continue.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to know where that city was. I think it's like a Meridade or something like that.
They only went to one city? I just assumed that they went everywhere in Brazil, but one city makes it more of like I don't know, like a location for a comic book.
Yeah. I don't know specifically that it was only one city. I'm sure some people went to other cities, but there was like one main place where all the Southerners went, and like I guess to some people's even like I saw some video of older people, and they said like, yeah, our grandparents all spoke English all the time, and they have like sweet tea and cornbread and mac and cheese and like all that kind of stuff they eat down there. It's like very Southern comfort food. And I've seen videos. I think like for the tourists now, they had like balls, like you would see straight from Gone with the Wind. They literally had that kind of stuff down there for a while. So now they have, like you go to some village in the Amazon and you expect to see like natives doing dances and stuff. Like these people would be doing like Southern ballroom dancing for tourists. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a comic called Amazon. It was 3 issues from Comico, so it was like 1981.
Ooh.
And it was just a reporter goes, and I was always fascinated with it, but he just goes like up the Amazon and he stops at some like trading post and they're just like, don't go any further. There's you're just gonna go into the jungle. There's like, what is the correct word? Indigenous people there,
Yeah.
But there's one city founded, like it was founded by like the rubber plantations back then, and then abandoned because, by the time they got the rubber plantation going, they got the seeds out and they were growing it in other places. But so I don't know if it's a real place or not, or if it was made up for this comic, but like past the Indians, past everything like that, is just a modern city of like people who just don't want to be bothered with anybody else. So like they don't take too kindly to strangers out there, but they're Europeans. Some of them speak German, some of them speak English, some speak French, some speak Portuguese, and it's just like a place where people just like, I had enough of the world. I'm gonna go live here.
It's a good question. I don't know how true that specifically is, but Henry Ford did make a city down there, and I believe it was part of it was to do like the rubber, but he was also one of these guys who he was sort of like a utopianist, and he's probably a eugenicist if we're being all serious. But he built it down there to like be this perfect society, and that's exactly what it was. He had engineers and he had workers, and they were all from here. I think they must have had some locals, but the city eventually fell. They had like whole families go out there, but like everybody hated it. People were dying of like malaria and other jungle diseases, and it had a lot of modern conveniences, but you're in the middle of the jungle. So it just went to crap, and supposedly some of the buildings are still there. So it wouldn't surprise me if there were some people who were like, screw society, and they're just living on the fringes out there.
That's cool. I love like hidden cities and things like that. Apparently there's like Soviet cities that are just erased from the map because of like, we didn't know about it at the time, but there was like nuclear disasters and they covered it up, and we didn't have the technology to find out about it. But there's like whole cities in the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, that are just not on any map, and you could just drive and go there. They've been abandoned for decades. Like that, that would be like supervillain lands. You know what I mean? That would be awesome. I know that
would be.
I know that there's like whole cities like in Siberia that they just abandon at part of the year because it's just too cold. I know China builds cities and then years later demolishes them. You would know. Yeah,
they haven't technically been demolished yet. The thing is, so like, if you're in China, you don't have access to investing like we do here. So like you could put your money in a nice 401k, you could do this, you could do that. But over there, you can't trust anything that's reported on the news. And like these companies, they don't have to actually open their books, and there's no investigative reporters. So, you better hope the numbers they put out are real, which they often aren't. So a lot of people wanted to buy land. And so the local governments, it's not like, Washington, D.C. will send money out to different states to implement different programs, right? Over there, it's like Beijing says, you will do this. And they're like, yes, sir. And Beijing's like, and we're not paying for it. And they're like, crap. So what they do is they sell or lease the land to developers. And then the government basically leans on banks to give developers like all the money to build stupid big cities. And there are cities where like, maybe each building has like one person living in there, even though they're like 25, 30 floors. It's absolutely insane. And people buy it on spec. They're like, okay, I'm going to buy this as an investment. I can rent it to somebody, or I could sell it later. And that kind of sort of works like when you're in Beijing or Shanghai, although even they're sucking wind right now. And I was trying to explain this to a friend like 20 years ago about like why he better be careful about, buying an apartment out. It was in the Beijing area, but it's so far out, you would have to drive like 2 hours into work.
Oh, wow.
And there's no trains to get out there. I'm like, you better be real careful with that, because you may never get your money out. And, that, and they're all going to fall down, because what happens is like I am the company that hires you to build it. Well, you're not going to build it. You're going to subcontract it out. And so you take some money, and the guy you subcontracted it out to, he's going to subcontract it out to somebody else, and he's going to take a percent. Well, eventually there's no money to be made unless you start using substandard materials. And that's what they find, like with a lot of the concrete, you're supposed to use river sand, but they'll use ocean sand, which apparently the salt in there will will rust the rebar, which then breaks, and like everything just starts falling apart. So that's what happened to a lot of people. And even for a lot of people's primary residences, like it's just falling apart, and you don't have any recourse. Like, oh, you're going to sue them? Well, they're all connected to the government, and they don't want to hear it, number one. And number two, they're just going to go out of business.
Yeah.
So it's bad.
I don't know if I was just talking this. I forget if I was talking to you, but like I've been reading that Japan, the population is so bad that there's just abandoned houses, like not in the major cities, but like I'm sure like the rural areas that you
major cities too.
But in the big, you could buy these houses for like $3,000 American dollars.
Well, you're not gonna find a $3,000 house like in Tokyo, but you can easily find one for 40, 50.
Yeah, that's I don't care. I'll live in whatever east from fucking in brand. Set up some internet. You know what I mean? And then when I retire, it's like I sold my house for $600,000. I bought a house for $3,000, fixed it up, and that's it. What else do you need?
Mm-hmm.
But my wife's like, I'm like Japan. There's no crime. The people are polite. The hospitals are good. But I just wonder if the Japan government will be like, wait, we don't want you. You're old. You're here to exploit our medical system. Yeah, you're right.
So strange pages. Well, I aim to please. I like to have a variety of content. And now we'll talk about the Japanese medical system.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Japanese immigration. No, they. Well, the thing is, you can buy the house and you can own it, but that doesn't give you a residency visa. So I think for Americans right now, you can go there 90 days out of the year.
Okay.
So you could live there for 3 months, and then it would sit empty the other times. Or what a lot of foreigners are doing is they're trying to find houses and then renting them out to locals, which is possible too. If you want to start a business, I think you need like 50 grand, and then 50 grand, but then you have to hire 1 or 2 Japanese people then you can get a business visa.
Okay. Well, it would work for me because I don't want to move. You know what I mean? I want all my stuff on the spot, live there cheap. I'm just concerned about. I don't want to when I'm done working. I don't want to be worried about money. So I tell my wife, like, what's the, like, West Virginia? Is that the poorest state? Let's buy a house in West Virginia. As long as people,
West Virginia is coming up.
Of course it is. Now that I'm ready to retire, no place is cheap.
My grandma lived in Ohio, but she was like 10 minutes outside of Wheeling, West Virginia. So I am very familiar with West Virginia.
Okay.
It's actually very beautiful.
Yeah.
Lots of meth, but very beautiful.
As long as they leave me alone, just dress like a local. Don't, I came here to retire. I got no money. Okay.
Well, you fit it right in.
Yeah. I'm a good neighbor. I run my own business.
I mean, especially if you're going to fix their electricity and stuff.
Well, you don't tell. That's the thing. You tell people you're an iron worker. Nobody needs iron in their house. You tell people you're an electrician. They just want you to come. Oh, can you come over? No, I don't want to do that. Working on people's houses is the worst, especially old houses, because like people just think like, oh, you just do this, you do that, you're done. No, it's like we got to tear down the wall, we got to run this because it's through wooden studs. It's a big freaking deal. So when I move out of state, I'm a retired iron worker. Nobody needs iron work in their house.
I know what you mean. It took me a long time to find a good electrician out here.
And electricity is dangerous. Like if we mess up, people die. You know what I mean? Like I was talking to the apprentice work. It's like if a carpenter messes up, the wall is funny looking. But if I'm talking about in the city, construction business, at house when you're building houses, it's more dangerous. Yeah. I'm talking about at work. It's mostly just putting up sheetrock and studs and stuff like that. But electricity, we can kill people if we don't know what we're doing if we're not careful. Oh, you retired Bronze Age caveman? What did you do? Were you a tradesman also? The girl from Ipanema, that she's from what, Sao Paulo?
No, Ipanema's a beach in Rio.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Trying to get a trip organized there one day. Oh, if you're interested in going to Japan, I think we're gonna have a presentation on it next weekend. There's an online gaming convention. Actually, let me grab. Let's see, where's the server here? The Great Underground Online Gaming Convention. If anyone is interested, registration is still open. It's all free. I am hosting a game on Friday night next week, but so myself and the Dungeon Delver, we're going to be hosting a tour next May, a gaming tour to Japan. So we're going to go there. We're going to play some Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sure some Call of Cthulhu. We might have some other games. And we're going to go see a lot of cool places in Japan and eat some great food.
My wife would be so mad if I went to Japan without her.
We'll bring her.
Yeah.
She likes playing some games, right?
We've played before, but for the most part, she's not interested.
Well, I have a feeling there's going to be a bunch of wives who are going on this one.
Yeah, I mean,
so, that's fine. The hotel we're staying at, there's 2 shopping malls within 5-minute walk, so they'll be just fine.
So today I did my Sunday comics in the morning, and then afterwards my wife and I went to the mall. She wanted to pick up a book, so we went to the Barnes and Noble, and then we went to the food court, and then there's this Japanese place. It's just like Japanese products. You know,
Mhm.
so you can get like ramens, but all the labels in Japanese, so that on the shelves they'll have like an English sign, so you know what it is. So you're not just buying like this is disgusting flavor, you know, fried squid and whatever. And she
Yeah.
loves this place. And then so like half the store is just food, shampoos and stuff, and
Mhm.
the other store is just like toys. And she just they are cute. If I was a little girl, man, it would be like the greatest place. You can get all of these cool little toys. She buys like one pack from this one series every time we go there. You know, it is cute. So she was like, I want to go to Japan. You know, everything just seems so cute and fun.
It is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Degree was in chemical engineering, did risk management in the final years of his career.
Oh wow.
Wow. That's awesome.
Cool.
Licensed but not worth much. So since it seems like we have 84 people watching on X and 1 person on YouTube, let me just invite everyone on X, come over to YouTube, check out at YangYanZhao4, and sign up to the channel. Give me a sub. You can more easily join in the chat over there, since I can't reply back to anything on X. And yeah, and have some fun.
You got 84 people watching? Cool.
Yeah, 85 total, 1 on YouTube. That's the one thing I don't get about X. Little inside baseball for everyone. When you are streaming on X, like very rarely does anyone ever leave a message in the chat. And I don't know how they count streaming views. Is it just like people like doom scrolling and like because they scroll by?
I don't know.
I don't know. Because otherwise, I don't know why 85 people would be tuning into this. And that's why you're awesome, Bronze Age Caveman.
I mean, I retweeted on X. You know, I'm not claiming the credit for that, but you know, everybody helps.
There are some other people who look like they're watching. Yeah, I don't know. I've had that before. It was weird. I had Rob. Oh my god, now I'm blanking on his name. He wrote a really great campaign guide for old school Dungeons and Dragons called Gods of the Forbidden North.
Okay.
And he won an award for it. And he was on one time, and I had like 200 people watching.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, oh, awesome. And I looked, and it's like 188 or 198 on X. It's like, is this real? I can't tell. But that's how things roll.
I know. I thought I was doing. I'm like, wow, I'm getting like 100 viewers at once, and blah blah blah. And then I was on West Thinking Critical, and there was 3,000 people watching. keep yourself humble, you know.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Hey, did you ever have my buddies on Dark Alchemy? You interested in having them on to talk?
Yeah. Did I have Dark Alchemy? Wait, I remember talking to him about it, but now I can't remember if he came on or not.
Oh, because he didn't say anything to me. But you know, those are the local guys over here. They run events. They 3D print and design models, and they would be perfect for your show. Dark Alchemy Labs, it's called.
Dark Alchemy Labs. Wait, no.
I'll ask them if they ever contacted. Yeah, I'm looking at the our back chat. I remember talking to you about them because you were watching when they were on my channel.
Yes, I remember that, and I could have sworn they reached out to me or I reached out to them, but I honestly do not remember.
Oh, okay.
That's weird. Yeah. I mean, yeah. love to have them on if they're interested.
Yeah, I'll talk to him again.
But that's weird. I have to admit I have been a little flighty. If something's going on and I don't schedule people right away, they should definitely get back to me because I'm like.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I scheduled 2 people at the same time. I was so embarrassed. Fortunately, one guy got stuck at work and had to cancel, so it worked itself out. But I was so for an hour or two.
Yeah, that happens. Especially a lot of people don't realize just how long working on campaign stuff. Like, if you're done, you're still not done because there's still a ton of stuff to do. And you're trying to get ready for the next campaign, and when you've got an active campaign, I mean, it's just hard to keep anything straight because
I'm always in promotion mode,
Exactly.
And I put myself out like anybody. I'll go on anybody's channel, I don't care about your politics. I don't care if it's not even comic books. Like, maybe there's 1 or 2 guys in that. Oh, that looks good. I'll buy that. I'm not big enough. I can't turn away a sale or 2, so I'll go on anybody. Mm-hmm. So guys watching this channel, I have a comic book on Rogue Tales 2 on Fund My Comic. Check it out.
Yeah. Why don't you bring a little of that up?
Oh, I can. Okay. Share Rogue Tales 2. Okay, cool. You got 85 people watching. Yeah, I should.
Let me see.
Okay,
here.
So this is my. Let me go to the top. So this is Heroic Tales 2. It's live. Mm-hmm. It's Heroic Tales 2 is a love letter to Blue Sky Bronze Age superheroes. Meaning it's just imagine Marvel and DC back in the 80s. This is supposed to be like as if you went in, you picked up your John Byrne, Chris Claremont X-Men, and then you got your Marv Wolfman, George Perez Teen Titans, and then you got Heroic Tales. So like that's why I wanted to work with Renzo so bad. And then Oscar's coloring this. Look at that. So each issue is self-contained. There's 2 stories in every issue, self-contained superhero stories. This is Mary Sue. I'm playing with the concept of like a girl boss. Don't worry, guys. She's not insufferable. She's quite the opposite. She's a sweet girl, and she's perfect in the fact that she gets a 4.0 average in college. She doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't date. She just studies, and her grandmother is like, she's perfect. She's the perfect girl. And now she's a little bit naive, goes off into the world and work. You see this guy holding the Orichalc. He takes advantage of her naivety, and she accidentally gets superpowers. She becomes, she's the perfect girl. She's perfectly powerful, but that comes, with power comes consequences. Now she has ultimate power. She has ultimate consequences. So issue 1 is her origin, or issue 2 rather is her origin, and then issue 3 will be the ramifications of what she did in this issue. This is also it's a flip book, so there's 2 covers. You turn the book upside down. You decide which is the main character, but the patriarch is a loving father, a loving husband, beloved superhero who's, contrary to the way things are presented in these days, he loves his wife, he loves his family, he wants to spend as much time with his family as possible, but he has responsibilities as a superhero. He considers himself the father of Science City in the fact that he's the protector. And this particular issue, he actually wants to. There's panels of him setting up D&D. So he's trying to play Dungeons & Dragons with his wife and kids, but he finds out through the news that there's a child gets abducted. So he's got to go off and fight the Subterranean. So the Subterranean is this monstrous being that rules the dungeons. So he ends up going on a dungeon crawl, just not the one he wanted to do with his kids. He's literally going through the darkness below Science City. So I always say that my comic book is part superheroes, part Dungeons and Dragons, and then an H.P. Lovecraft sprinkled on top of it. And I gotta say, and conspiracy theories. So
nice.
And then this is the way the comic's gonna come. With the one upside down. So you twist it over. But this is the variant edition. This is drawn by Josh Howard, who does Dead at 17. And then this is Jose Garcia doing the patriarch fighting the Subterranean. And then this just came about. I sent the shirt to one of my friends, and she modeled it, and everybody's like, "You got to make a cosplay cover." So that's Martina Marcota. She has her own comic called Lady Alchemy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and she just made this cover for me. And then on the back is Crenshaw. He looks like the patriarch. So he, I got. And here's the interior art. His patriarch with his wife. She's burnt. She suffered a misfortune that I did not explain yet, nor will I explain until patriarch number 3. And then these are all characters that showed up in issue 1. This is the mayor of Science City, who's a supervillain in himself. His origin was last issue. And here he is descending into the darkness. And then here's some wonderful artwork from Mary Sue. This is Renzo Rodriguez and Oscar Carano doing the colors. This is Renzo Rodriguez and Daniel De La Silva doing the colors. So it's just so good. It's the best. It's the best writing I've ever done, and it's the best art that Oscar and Renzo have done and Daniel has done. It is so good. I know you're supposed to toot your own horn, but man, I'm tooting. I'm tooting all the way. I'm going to 11 with my tooting. This is the bad guy. This is Philip Manning. He's like my Lex Luthor, and this is his number one woman who is evil in her own right. Why? Because she's a lawyer, and she is. Wait till you hear her story when I finally get around to talking about what she does in the service of a supervillain. But
I don't think you should give her any power. She should just be an evil lawyer.
No, she has no powers. Her only powers are her connections, what she has, her blackmail material on other people, and like her sexy charm. You know what I mean? She uses all of that to get what she wants. She's horrible. And Philip Manning is obsessed with getting superpowers. I always thought, like, wouldn't Lex Luthor want to fly? Like, wouldn't he want to physically be able to challenge Superman? So that's what he's doing. He's trying to get superpowers so he could physically beat up the patriarch. It's because he just feels inferior. You know what I mean? I think that would be realistically, in a world where people can get bitten by spiders, wouldn't you want to give yourself the best powers possibly? So now he thinks as soon as he gets powers, he's going to be the greatest superhero in the world. But, really? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, Michael Dare says he played Fortune and Glory. Good. Such a fun game. I'm so glad you liked it. So
very cool,
Michael. So this is live now on Fund My Comic. It's $10, 2 complete stories. Every issue is going to be 2 complete stories.
Very cool.
My next campaign, I'm gonna go into the patriarch number 1, and I'm finally gonna tell his origin. Now that you know my world, now that you learn everything, I just didn't think telling his origin wouldn't have been as a good impact, because things aren't what they seem. He's kind of living a little bit of a lie, not by choice, but by basically being forced by the ultimate bad guys, the government. So he's tired of living the lie, so that's going to come to a head. And I think it wouldn't have had an impact if I just told you right away. But there you go. So thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah, of course. If anyone is interested in, I guess you would say, the feeling of old school comics, but with new stories, go check that out. It's over on Fund My Comic.
It's all my new, my original characters. I'm not using pre-existing characters. I'm not using what's the word?
Like public domain characters.
I'm not using public domain characters. These are all mine.
Yeah. So I know John and I like John. So take this review for what it's worth. But I quite like the first Heroic Tales. I have. When you know someone, you're never really sure, like, oh, is it going to be good? But it actually was pretty darn good.
Yeah, I get so nervous when I get comics from my friends. I'm like, please let this be good. Please let this be good. I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Christow. He does a book called Six Gun Gorilla.
Six Gun Gorilla, yeah.
I got Six Gun Gorilla, and I put off reading it. I'm like, it's a gorilla with the 6 gun in the Old West. It's gonna be stupid humor that I don't like. Oh my God, it was so good. It was so good. I had to message him. I got a few comics from friends, and I'm like, And a few people said the same thing to me. Like, please, this has to be good. This has to be good. I like John. It has to be good. And the second issue, I sent the Mary Sue story out to a couple of people to they're all saying it's good. And part of me is like, are they just blowing smoke? But like, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I caught you on. Oh my God, my brain is really going tonight.
I know, me too. I'm
Horace H. Hoover.
Fabrizio.
You were on there last. Yeah, Fabrizio. How do you forget a name like Fabrizio? It's not like it's Bob.
He's one of my favorite people. I just was on his channel last night. We just talked. Yeah, he has a comic called Horace H. Hoover, and it's so good.
Yeah. I can't wait until he comes out with issue 4.
Yeah, he's working on it right now. And the patriarch, one of the things, the subterranean, he lives underground, and he's just covered in mushrooms and fungus. So the patriarch hits him, and the mushrooms explode, and spores go over, and he starts to hallucinate. And he's laying on the ground, and Horace H. Hoover comes and helps him up. So I asked a couple of my friends who are friends, can I use your characters on a page? I said, they're not really there. They're just hallucinations. And a couple of them who really strict with continuity, like, well, why would they be there? I'm like, because he reads their comics. So, okay. So, Brian Bauer's Wolf and Batsy is a comic book that exists, that the Patriarch's kids read. Thomas Valiant from RJ from the Fourth Age. And it's funny because Lily and Wapwet from Saving the World show up, but the Patriarch's kids wouldn't read that comic. It's a little too risque. So, are they real, or are they, why is he hallucinating them? But if you read Saving the World, you'll understand how they could possibly be there. I love that kind of stuff.
Is Wolf and Batsy appropriate for kids? Well, maybe the older one.
What do you mean the older? Oh yeah.
Well, the Patriarch has the older son.
Yeah, the older kids read it. Yeah, and it's funny because there's an ad. I like putting like old school ads in the. So there's in the middle of the comic, there's going to be Saturday morning matinee, and it's going to be fake cartoon, and one of them is a little wolf and little Batsy, and they got little diapers on. Brian drew that. He thought it was a kick. So yeah, the little kids watch the adventures of Wee Wolf and Wee Batsy, but yeah, the older kid reads Wolf and Batsy for the adults. Yeah, the little ones don't read that. Everybody reads Horace H. Hoover.
Hey Patty, how's it going? Well, I hate to say it, but I've got a meeting in a few minutes.
Yeah, I got to get back to writing. I just took it. When you get frustration, I don't know about you, but when you're writing, I kind of welcome I welcome distractions.
I welcome them too much.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Do you map out like the ecology of your dungeons? Like, do you know how everything works? Like I remember when I was like 12 years old, I'm like, why are there goblins in this room? And then you open up this room and there's a green slime. Wouldn't the green slime eat the goblins? Like, I started getting a little too logical.
Yes. That's funny because I've had some people complain that like there's not enough traps in certain areas. And I'm like, well, people live in these areas. Why would they have like tripwires where they live? I mean, you get up and go to the bathroom at night, you're going to blow yourself up, So I try to make it have sense as much as possible. Although, some places over the years, like it could be that goblins, like there could have been something in there before the goblins and the slime's just around, and maybe they know how to deal with it, or it could be somehow they were separated and now the like a wall fell apart or something. But I try to have like some sense to it. I don't like random monsters in places just for random reasons.
Yeah, I never used the wandering monsters table. Why would an owlbear just be walking down the hallway? Like, wouldn't the orcs, or wouldn't it afford the orcs? You know what I mean? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have wandering monster tables for most of them, but it's like things that should be there.
Okay,
You
so
know,
if you make it appropriate to your adventure, that I could dig, that I could understand.
yeah, like if orcs had taken over a cave, you know, there would probably be warrior orcs that are wandering around, or like maybe there would be like a shaman or something,
Yes.
or maybe like a warg, or you know, one of their pets that would make sense that they were there. So Patty, well, this is this is actually part of the campaign guide. This is a craftsman style house that was created by a wizard. So things from, you know, like the 1920s seem absolutely futuristic and crazy magical to people in a medieval society.
I had Sandy Peterson on my channel. He's a good guest. Go get Sandy Peterson. He's one of the few guests that I was just like, I gotta stop. I gotta go. He'll talk forever. He's so good. But one of the things he says, like the dungeon itself is its own dimension. He goes, don't think about it. Just go into the dimension, and it's its own, because it's its own rule. Like it you know. But I'm too logical. Like, why would the dragon be in the 9th level with no access to air, no access to food? Like, is it just in status until we open the door, and then it's frozen and attacks it? You know what I mean? So, and I read a Great Dragon magazine article. I know you said you got to go. I'm sorry. I read a Great Dragon magazine, and they said, like, if the dungeon's purpose was to guard the wizard's treasure or the lich's treasure, it would just open up into a giant room, and all the monsters in the entire dungeon would attack the players at once, rather than give them time to go in, take out these orcs. Now you can take out the pudding. Now you're gonna, because instead you're just gonna have a horde of 300 monsters just go. You know. So he goes, so the purpose isn't to guard the treasure. It's got to be some, and you know, and I'm like, yeah. Oh, we got big.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I could keep talking about this for hours, but
Yeah, this is fun. I love talking about this, and thank you for inviting me on your channel.
yeah, of course. Have to have you back again. I've noticed. So for anyone who popped in late, check out Heroic Tales 2 on Fund My Comic. There is a link in the chat, which some people may not be able to see, but I'll just put that on there again real quick. Yeah, go check it out if you're interested in comic books. I will actually be back Wednesday evening with Peter Submetti. We're gonna talk about he's also got a campaign, not for comics this time, for actual printers. So, and if people who are into games are watching this, check it out, because he's going to be able to do short run prints. So like you need 50 prints or 100 prints for relatively low cost on newsprint, which is going to make it look like old school magazines. It's going to be awesome. Comics, gaming, whatever you got, the man, I'm sure will be able to print it.
I bought an ad for Heroic Tales because I felt like Alterna introduced me to some of my new friends, like Brian from Tonic Mall. So I was like, at least I could do is buy an ad in an Alterna magazine. So his next campaign is going to have a Heroic Tales.
Oh, nice.
Someplace.
Yeah, I got some ads last year before Empire of the Undying Sun came out. And I got to say, the ads look awesome.
Yeah.
But all right, everyone, go check out John's Longbox. Search for it on YouTube, and you will be able to find it. And I will see everyone a little later.
Everybody. Bye-bye.